The Ottoman Empire is associated with luxurious palaces, fine silk, and the scent of oriental spices. But behind the grand facade hid a paranoid machine of power. This is a world ruled not just by sultans, but by fear, conspiracies, and sheer madness. Today we turn the pages of history that are not usually read aloud in school lessons, from underground bunkers for entire cities to Viking vandals and coups over soup. Forget boring dates and textbooks. Welcome to the realm of historical surrealism. The Golden Cage. Being a ruler's brother in any country is a privilege, but not here. To avoid political competition and conflicts for the throne, the Ottomans invented a brilliantly ruthless system. They created the most luxurious, strict isolation in human history. A palace wing, known as the cafes or the cage, became the eternal home for potential heirs. From birth, they were isolated from the outside world. They had everything: the best food, music, and silks. They lacked only one thing: basic freedom of action. Imagine spending 30 or 40 years in a gilded room waiting for someone to come for you at any minute, either to hand you a crown or to permanently neutralize a political rival. It was an extreme psychological pressure of absolute endless uncertainty. When the turn to rule finally reached these captives, the empire got a sultan who hadn't seen real life for decades. Unsurprisingly, many of them emerged from there with severe trust issues, spending their days conversing solely with imaginary companions. The spy master. Western monarchies relied on loyal ministers and powerful cardinals. In this part of the world, the third most important person after the sultan was the chief eunuch, a figure with a highly specific personal history who was officially listed as a simple harem caretaker. In reality, his power was absolutely limitless. He controlled all connections between the ruler and the outside world, filtered mail, and decided who got an audience. This man was the CEO of the largest espionage network, spread across 2 continents. Since he could not have his own heirs, he was considered absolutely loyal to the state and immune to corruption. But his monopoly on information made him untouchable. He could elevate general and quietly orchestrate the downfall of high-ranking political opponents. He was the ultimate gray cardinal. While viziers and ministers publicly lost their posts over the slightest mistakes, the chief eunuch remained in the shadows, pulling the strings of a vast empire. True power always prefers the silence of gilded corridors. 18 levels down. When a threat arises, ordinary people build high walls or fortresses. The residents of Cappadocia solved the problem differently. They literally vanished from the face of the earth, creating Derinkuyu, a giant multi-tiered metropolis deep underground. This isn't just a couple of caves, it goes 18 levels down, designed to accommodate 20,000 people. Inside, they engineered residential blocks, schools, storage, ventilation shafts, and even wineries. A true autonomous, medieval bunker. At the slightest risk of invasion, the entire city moved underground. Heavy stone millstone doors tightly blocked the tunnels from the inside. Enemy armies could march across the empty surface for months, completely unaware of the bustling life below. The psychology of living in an enclosed space without sunlight staggers the imagination. It is an architectural monument to collective paranoia and brilliant engineering. Derinkuyu proves that if humanity wants to survive, it can turn into a literal mole. The Soup Rebellion. Any empire relies on its elite troops. The Ottomans created the Janissaries, a flawless military machine. But over time, these defenders of the throne turned into a powerful armed syndicate. They realized that controlling power is much more profitable. Their main symbol was a huge copper cauldron used for making soup. Food was issued by the sultan as a sign of care. But if the Janissaries were unhappy with their salary, they would publicly turn this cauldron upside down, pouring the stew onto the square. This wasn't just a gesture of disrespect. An overturned cauldron marked the official start of a major political upheaval. It was a clear signal to the entire capital. The army refuses to obey. And a harsh shift in political course with cabinet dismissals is imminent. Imagine a formidable military faction using kitchen utensils as an instrument to pressure an entire state. Sultans were absolutely terrified of the ringing of empty cauldrons. It is the perfect example of how personal guards can become your worst nightmare. Race to survive. But for a few guilty ministers, there was a truly unique chance to save both their careers and their future. The head palace gardeners, known as bostanci, doubled as enforcers of the strictest royal decrees. If an official received the harshest verdict, he was offered a grim deal: to run a desperate sprint across the sprawling territory of the luxurious Topkapi Gardens. The rules were simple. The condemned man started simultaneously with the gardener. The goal was to reach the fish market gates faster than his pursuer. It was the most motivating race in human history, where the prize was not a gold cup, but simple exile. If the minister arrived first, he was merely sent into lifelong exile, preserving his status. If the gardener won, the finish line marked the official's ultimate defeat. This turned political justice into a deeply cynical and ruthless contest for the highest leadership. Viking Vandal. Hagia Sophia is an architectural wonder of the world, a coronation site and a center of spiritual power. Its marble columns witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, but one upper gallery parapet hides a detail that shatters all this sacred pathos. If you look closely at the ancient stone, you can spot deeply scratched runes. For a long time, it was considered a secret cipher or a sacred message. But when linguists deciphered the text, they encountered a classic display of tourist vandalism. The inscription reads, "Halfdan was here." It turns out that 1,000 years ago, a Viking mercenary from the elite Varangian Guard simply got bored during a long church service. Pulling out his carving tool, he decided to immortalize his own name. This historical curiosity proves that human nature is absolutely unchangeable. Regardless of the era, the greatness of the moment, and the sanctity of the place, there is always a bored guy holding a sharp object. History isn't just about epic exploits. Gold for fish. Ruling an empire requires a cold mind and iron logic. Unfortunately, Sultan Mustafa I possessed neither. After many years of strict isolation in the palace, his mental endurance finally gave way, and he turned major state affairs into a theater of the absurd. During official cabinet meetings, he could suddenly start tearing turbans off his viziers' heads or pulling their beards while laughing merrily. But the main problem was his incredibly unique economic policy, which left the state treasurers in deep shock. Mustafa adored taking boat rides along the Bosphorus, but instead of breadcrumbs, he took heavy bags of gold coins with him. The ruler smilingly threw the empire's budget into the sea by the handful and sincerely believing that fish also needed pocket money. This was a literal drain of state capital. The ruler's highly eccentric generosity nearly triggered a total collapse of the financial system. When a person with such quirks occupies the throne, the only salvation for the country is a very rapid dismissal. The history of Turkey is not just a list of battles and conquests. It is a complex thriller full of psychological dramas, political absurdity, and incredible coincidences. The shadows of the past are longer here, and palace secrets are still hidden away. If you are ready to dig deeper and look at familiar historical facts without the censorship of school textbooks, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. In the next video, we will dissect new historical anomalies. Remember, reality is madder than fiction.